Let's get some analysis now from Greg Simmons, who is an associate professor at the Institute for Russian and Eurasian Studies at Uppsala University. Professor, thank you for being with us today. Now, looking at the events that we've seen happen between Armenia and Azerbaijan, how effective do you think the Collective Security Treaty Organization is, given that Armenia is an ally of the organization?
Well, you've got a number of problematic geopolitical issues which are connected to this. Yes, Armenia is part of the CSTO, and there are obligations. However, I mean, Russia also wants to maintain some semblance of functional relations with Azerbaijan. So, I mean, if it fulfilled those treaty obligations with direct military intervention, those might be made more problematic. So I think it's a kind of balancing act where they would prefer not to be directly militarily involved, but rather as a mediator between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Some analysts view such forces under the auspices of the CSTO as a tool for the Kremlin to extend its influence as part of its hybrid warfare strategy. Would you agree with that?
Well, it's part of their foreign and security policy. I'm not sure whether we can start talking about hybrid warfare. Otherwise, I mean, one can start using those terms against NATO and how US uses NATO. Of course, it's concerning influence, but it's also concerning collective security in terms of trying to work together on certain security issues which affect the parties.
And Russia is experiencing significant losses on the battlefield in Ukraine, as we've seen recently. What does this say about its capabilities in sustaining its power financially and militarily in the region?
Okay, well, the battlefield is rather complex, and Russia has had setbacks, definitely, and a significant surprise in terms of the Kharkiv offensive. Of course, if we look at the Kherson offensive, I mean, that was announced and Ukrainian forces were slaughtered. But rather than seeing, Russia lost relatively little troops because they withdrew them back rather than engage those forces in Kharkiv. So in terms of manpower lost, they haven't lost significantly the manpower. And if we look at historically, I mean, there can be a tactical success, but ultimately the counteroffensive can be lost. I mean, we just need to look back to the Ardennes offensive when the Germans caught the Americans off guard and they pushed them back. But then superior military firepower saw that offensive ultimately destroyed. So, I mean, this is far from being over.
Professor, we're also seeing an increase of tensions between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, and that's resulted in casualties. And again, little has been done by the organization to quell the unrest. What does that tell us about the future of the organization?
Well, it tells us that there are a lot of problems, and a lot of these problems are deep-seated, and they have been going on for decades. I mean, if we look at the issue, especially the Faranga Valley, where these tensions between Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan have been going. This has been ongoing. It's highly problematic, it's highly emotional, it's highly volatile. So that they've got serious security issues to work on. And I mean, these are challenges for the CSTO to work through.
All right, Professor Greg Simmons, thank you so much for being with us here on the NewsHour. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.